Hello everyone. In this video, I will teach you how to represent the domain for a function if we have the graph for this function. So first, this function is a line. So this function is a linear function. So we can represent that as a linear equation. So our goal today is to represent the domain for this function. First of all, the domain for any function, we usually talking about the x-axis. So the domain for this function can be represented as the x-axis. Always we will start from the origin and then the origin is 0, 0. And if you want to find the domain, so we can start, for example, from the left side, I can call it the left side, toward the right side. So if I start from this point here, which is the first point I need to care about, going up to this point here, so starting from the 0, 0 and moving to the left as 1, 2, 3, and 4, we know that we are moving like this in the negative direction, because this is the negative direction. Of course, after the 0 to the right, it's the positive direction. So we are going to -4. For the second point, this point, now I will do the same, and I will draw this line toward the x-axis, reaching to this point here, and starting from 0, 0 or the origin, I can start as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I end up with the 7. But because I am on the right direction, on the positive direction, so the point here is what? 7. So now the domain exactly from the point -4 on the x-axis to the point which is +7. All the number between the -4 and 7. So we can write the domain as follows. So there is an x number between -4 and 7. X is greater than -4 for sure, and the x actually is less than 7. So the domain in this case is not included with the numbers after 7 or greater than 7, and the numbers that less than -4 will not also be included in this function. So what's about the circle? Here is filled circle. So if the circle is filled, that means we need equity. The meaning of equity here is this point, which is -4, is included. So that's why we filled that point or the circle that represents the point, and we have equity. But if you see here, we have empty circle. It's not filled circle. So we don't need the equity. So that means the 7 is not included. So now I can say that -4 included with domain, but 7 not included with domain. So how can I read this domain? I can see that the domain in this case, I can read it as follows. So the domain for this function is all number all numbers that I can read this sign because here is the big mouth as all the number that as x, all the number that greater. So this sign like this big mouth, I read it as greater. Greater, or I have equity, so I read or equal to negative 4. At the same time, and at the same time, and those number is less than So why less than? Because the numbers now, look at the mouth, it's a small mouth, so I can read it as less than, or I can read it as smaller than. But I cannot say or equal. I cannot use equity because, as I said, 7 is not included. So it is less than or smaller than 7. So I can represent the domain like this, and its interval between -4 and -7. Let's say that this is the first way to represent the domain. Can I represent the domain in different way? Yes. There is more simpler way. For example, let me write here as number 2. I will do the same using the -4. Instead of writing x, I will replace it by comma and then write 7. Because the -4 is included, we use bracket. So the bracket means that equity. So the -4 is actually included because I don't have like equity, so I can use parentheses. I can read this domain the same as I read the domain here. So the domain are, or the domain is, all numbers that is more than -4 and less than 7, more than or equal, greater than or equal -4 and less than 7, or all the numbers between -4 and 7, but we take in our consideration that -4 is included because of the circle, filled circle, and 7 is not included because it is like empty circle or not filled circle. So as you see, we can represent the domain in too many different ways. Hope that you get the idea about the domain, but before I leave this video, I need to remind you about something. For example, if I talk about this point, which is like starting from 0 going to 7, so here is 7, then going up as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going up as 11 units. So the points, any points, for example, this point, I can represent it as x and y, going 7 units toward x, so x is 7, and then going up toward 11, here we call it as point. For example, I can call it point A, for example, point A. So point A, this is the meaning of point A, is run 7 units to the right direction and rise 11 units. So run 7 and rise, run 7 and rise 11. That's exactly the meaning of point A. But when I'm talking about the domain, this is different meaning. This is an interval. So now I'm talking about the numbers, not just -4 as run, no, or 7 as rise, no. This is as a domain, in this case, is all the numbers between -4 because of the bracket is included, and 7 which is not included. So at the end, I will not make you confused. For example, if I write -4 and 7, the domain in this case will be, if this is the case, so first I need to unfill this circle and just make it unfilled circle. And in this case, all the number between -4 and 7, the same, but in this case, -4 is not included with the domain as 7 is not included. This is the first thing I want to concentrate about, which is the domain. Next video, I will concentrate on the range, and we will discuss the range of this function together, or this graph together. Hope you enjoy this video and you learn something new. Let's keep pushing and to make the math more and more easy.